It's so funny to be standing up here and watching all of y'all like bebopping to that song when it's going on. That's like the coolest song ever. So, guys, I feel like it's been like months since I've seen y'all. It's been like 2 weeks, all right? But a lot's going on since I last saw you guys. So, like Daniel said, I'm a dad. So that happened. That poor girl has no idea what she's in for. She's got a long life ahead of her. So she's not gonna be dating. She's not gonna be wearing skirts. She's gonna be wearing pants. So yeah, she's got a long. Yeah. We've already had this discussion. Every night when I put her to sleep, I talk to her about what we're gonna do when boys start coming around. So, but anyways, so last week you guys had Derek. Can y'all give it up for Derek? I heard it was awesome. Apparently, he must not have brought it too hard because that was extremely weak. I heard Derek did like a fantastic job last week. Yeah. Oh, yeah. That was some of it. I'm sorry. I tried, man. I'm sorry. So Derek introduced our series called Margin. You know, when Derek and I were kind of talking, we were sitting at the table at my house. We were kind of going over like series we could do, and we kind of came across one that kind of talked about schedules, and we saw this. And so Derek and I were like looking at each of the points of this message, and we were going by and we're like, oh my gosh, that's me. That's me. Derek's like, yeah, that's me too. And we were like, I guarantee you these students can relate to just having schedules that are ridiculous and crazy. Because I know you guys have ridiculous schedules. I was telling Derek that actually a few weeks ago, I was driving somewhere with work with a bunch of my other peers, and all of them have kids. I was the only one at the time that didn't have kids. And they were telling me like all this stuff their kids were doing. They were like, oh, well, my kid has to go to this and take this test and go here and be a part of this and pass this if they want to take this class. And they have to do this and this. And every single one of them were in like middle school. And it sounded like everybody was in college. So do you guys ever feel that way? Like you're in college now? Like y'all are just overloaded with work? Yes. Those of y'all that said no, I don't feel like it, probably are not passing your classes. Am I right? Those of you that said you are probably are stressing out. All right, so go ahead with me. If you got your Bibles or you got your Bible app, go ahead and turn to Ephesians chapter 5. So this is going to kind of be a point of where we're at tonight. It's not going to be, we're going to kind of jump around a little bit with some different scripture, but I want you to go ahead and turn to there for me. So when Derek introduced margin to you guys last week, he kind of told you that what margin is, the meaning of this series, is really the amount available beyond what is necessary. What that means is when we describe, that's what margin is, that's the difference between what you have and what you need. So the difference between what you actually have now and what you need. So as far as schedules go, I know you guys have crazy schedules as well as I do. How many of you have like an agenda, or you have something that you keep in your bag, or maybe you're one of these people that live and die by your phone? How many of you have something like that you keep your track of your schedule? That you have to have that. I'm sure most of you do. Some of you don't. How are y'all not organized? Those of you who didn't raise your hand. This brain. So for me, I have to have my phone. My phone has everything in it. What you don't really understand what I say by that is in our family, we have a schedule for everything. We have a calendar for everything. We have a Cultivate students calendar that we have everything that you guys do, or when due dates are, or when we need to get things out, or when series begin. We have that we share with some of the student leaders so we know what's going on. I have a schedule, or I have a calendar at work that strictly has nothing but classes I teach, like all of my lifeguard classes or Red Cross, like CPR classes. I have a schedule for that. We have a family calendar. That means anything that goes on in our family as far as doctor's appointments, anywhere we got to be, vacations, any of that stuff, we have a calendar for that. I have a work calendar that everything I do at work between meetings and due dates for that. I have a calendar there. I have a calendar for my swim team, everything I do. So we have like 7 or 8 calendars that we have to follow. I live and die by my phone. If it is not in our phone, it doesn't happen. It's not real. Like I actually have tonight in my schedule, okay? If I don't see it, then I'm like, oh, there's obviously no fix tonight because it's not in my schedule. If we go to the movies, I put it in our family schedule. There's so many apps now that when you see something like a movie app, you can actually say, would you like to add to your schedule? I'm like, yes, please. I need to add that. So that way I know it's actually happening. I have everything in there. So if it is not in our calendars, then it's not going on. If I forget something, I'll tell my wife, I said, did you put it in the calendar? And she'll be like, yes or no. Typically it's yes, I just don't see it. I'm like, well, obviously it didn't happen because you didn't put it in the schedule. So I live and die by it. I'm pretty much bound to it. I'm stuck. Like I have to have it. I almost end up having this kind of a meltdown if my schedule is not working and I can't see it because I have no idea what's going on. So, but for you, how many of you feel like if I had just a little bit more time, if I had a little bit more going on, like for instance, say, how many of you wish you had a little bit more time just to yourself? Just you, nobody else, just for you, yourself to hang out. How many of you wish that you had a little bit more time maybe to do the things you love? Hobbies, things like that. And it can be with people, it can be with not. How many of you kind of wish you had a little bit more time just to be with friends and family? Hang out, do things, party, whatever it is you guys do. Okay, now how many of you kind of wish you had just a little bit more time in your day to spend with God? Do we all kind of feel that time that we don't? Like we feel like we don't have time in our day to actually spend with God or family or friends. We just feel overwhelmed. And what that means is there's so many things in our lives that just overwhelm us. They stress us out. Think about culture. Culture tells us we should be busy. We should always have something to do, somewhere to go, somewhere to be. We're overwhelmed by what culture tells us to have going on. We get overwhelmed by school. So many of you in this room, you're part of clubs, you're part of sports teams, you're part of like SGA, you're part of like homecoming committees, you're part of First Priority, you're part of after school activities, whether it's choir, band, no matter what it is, you have all these other things that are going on in your lives that overwhelm you. And the other thing that can really is just life in general, your life, the things that you have to do, like getting up and getting to be places on time. And for those of you that actually shower every day, you got to get in a shower and you got to make time for that in the morning. And then you got to make time to clean if you have chores you have to do or be here or be there. So a lot of these things that we have, they're just overwhelming. So I want you to kind of think back to the very last day that you had off. What I mean by that, you can mean that maybe you had a day off for those of you that work, you didn't have to be somewhere, whether it's a weeknight or a weekend, you didn't have to work, babysit, go to your job, whatever it is that you do, maybe you have that. Maybe it's you didn't have school one day, like a holiday, or you have something on a Saturday, but you had nothing to do. You just had the day off, you didn't have any plans. How many of you, when you have that day, think back to the last time you really had that, did you really spend it like you planned? Did you say, hey, I'm just going to do nothing all day long. I'm going to hang out. I'm just going to chill. I'm going to relax. Or how many of you kind of in your mind started thinking about you have time to do some of the things you haven't had to? And you start saying like, oh, well, I got to get this done and I got to get that done and I got to go here and I got to go there. I got to buy this. I got to buy that. So your entire day just becomes busy. And you kind of feel like I need a day off from my day off. I didn't even have a day off. I was supposed to. I wasn't supposed to do anything, and I ended up just working and staying busy and trying to catch up on all the things that I didn't have right now. And think back to that day off as well. We kind of say to our minds, most of you or all of you in this room, raise your hand that you wish you'd had a little bit more time every day to spend with God. I'm pretty sure that day off you had, you guys didn't spend like 8 glorious hours like in the Word, like hardcore. I'm sure most of you probably didn't even spend an hour that day because you had all these things going on. So imagine if that God hears you, he says out, you're like, God, if I just had a little bit more time every day, I could spend it with you. I could get this done. I could get that done. If God says, you know what? I got you. You're good. And says, poof, there's 25 hours in a day now. Now there's midnight is now like 13 o'clock. Okay. You got an extra day. You got an extra hour in the day. Even with that extra hour, do you feel like with your schedule, you would still find time to spend with God? Even with that one more time, you can get an extra hour of sleep and get up earlier, or do a devotion before you go to bed. If you had 25 hours in a day, do you still feel like you would use that to spend with God in your schedules? Now, when my days off are pretty much kind of the same that with yours as well. Like if I have something going on, and I tell Emily, I'm like, hey, do we have anywhere to go? Do we have anything to do? If she says no, we really don't. We're just at home. We can relax. She might say, hey, will you go grab me something from the garage? Will you do this? And then like 3 hours later, I've taken every single tool and everything I have on the wall off. I put it in the middle of the garage and I've rehung it in another way just because I'm like, well, it's not clean. I need to re-clean it. Or I'll pick up a tool in the garage or something and I'll be like, well, this tool, I really need to like dig in the garden and like fix the flowers and do this. Or Emily will say, hey, we need to go to Walmart. We're missing this. We're missing that. Or we need to do laundry. Or we need to do this with the dogs in here. So these are my days off. Essentially what it is I had a plan. I had something I was going to do. and then I kind of start to veer off what I had planned for that day. Now, for those of you that drive and you have a car, or even if you don't, there's something called your car alignment. If you know what that is, essentially, if you're driving and you kind of just let go of the steering wheel, your car, if it's aligned properly, should do nothing but just stay straight driving. It shouldn't veer off to the left. It shouldn't veer off to the right. It's aligned. It's ready to go. It's fixed the way it should. Some of you are shaking your head right now like, dude, I let go of my steering wheel. I'm taking like a hard 90-degree right. So that's because your car is not aligned. So what I want you to imagine, I want you to think about your life right now. Think about your car being aligned, and that road that you're on, I want you to imagine that's God, and you're seeing yourself there. Is your life right now a car that's in alignment or not in alignment? If you see God ahead of you and you let go, you're let go and you're driving straight, are you aligned and going to continue going straight to God? Or if you let go of that car, are you going to veer off from the center? Are you going to veer off from what matters because your schedule is so hectic, it changes everything that you have going on? It keeps you reminded. It takes your focus away from God. It takes it from where it needs to be. You don't focus on Him, so you're just unaligned. Your car's unaligned. Your life is not lined up the way it should be. So when we look at our schedules in terms of that margin that we talked about, having the amount that's beyond what is necessary, when we have that, if we look at that margin in terms of our schedule, and we have that margin in our life where we've kind of trimmed the fat, or we found where we can fit things in our schedule, what that means is having extra time. We have a little bit of extra time in our day. Maybe that means that extra time you have without, that you can help somebody out. How many times have you had somebody say, hey, would you mind helping me doing this? And you're like, yeah, I do it. But in the back of your mind, the whole time you're helping this person, you're like selfishly freaking out. Because you're like, I've got to be home. I've got to do this. I got to write this paper. I got to read this book. I got to do all these things. So in your mind, you've kind of forgotten the whole point of what you're doing. You're trying to help somebody else, but you're just not there. You're focused on everything else because you're freaked out that you use this extra time to help somebody that you could be using for you. When we look at that margin in terms of our schedule as well, what it does is it allows us to actually have a little bit more time to do the things that we enjoy. It doesn't keep you running from one activity to the next and to the next and to the next. I know some of you have school days right now where you get up, you get ready, you go to school, you do your classes. As soon as classes are done, you got to go to a club or something else afterwards, or maybe it's like a sport or practice. As soon as practice is over, maybe you got to go to small group, or you got to go to a study group, or you got to go somewhere here. And as soon as that's over, then you got to get back home, you got to eat dinner, you got to get set to go to bed, and then you still have homework that you have to do somewhere within your day. So you're jumping from one thing to the next, to the next, and to the next. What that also means when we look at that margin in terms of our schedule, that we have time in our day that it's okay that we're interrupted. If somebody says to us, hey, would you mind helping me? You're like, yeah, I would. I'd be glad to. But you don't have those negative thoughts of, I can't do this. I don't have time. And when we look at that margin in terms of our schedule, it also means that we have extra time in the day to fit God in. Even though in our minds we think like, I really don't. I don't have time to sit down with that. I don't have time to spend with God. But if we look at our schedules in terms of that margin going beyond what is necessary, we trim that fat from our life of things that I don't need to be a part of this or part of that. You can find time to fit God into your life. So if you got your Bible apps, I told you guys, go ahead and turn to Ephesians chapter 5. We're going to be down in verse 15. Now, as we read this, I got a couple things I want you to underline. I want you to put stars next to, lightning bolts, birds, whatever. I want you to draw attention to this part of the verse. Okay, so here's what it is. It's going to be down in chapter 5, verse 15. It says this: be very careful. That's the word. If you see, I even underlined it on the screen. That's what I want you to do. I want you to underline that. I want you to circle it, put stars around it, whatever you got to do to draw attention to that part of the verse. It finishes up and says, then how you live, not as unwise, but as wise. So I want you guys, I want you to leave that verse up there for you guys while we're talking this. So as we look at that verse and it says, be very careful. What that means is, and I want you to even write this in your notes, or if you got your Bible app and you highlighted it, when you highlight it, it says you can leave a comment, put this in the comments. Okay, this is what that verse is saying. We must watch how we live our lives. We must watch where we invest our time. Okay? So when we look at that, what that means is if we're not careful, we see that right there in the beginning of the verse, be very careful. If we're not careful, we're going to become that car. We're going to be pulled off center from where we need to go. We're going to be pulled away from what actually matters in our life, whether that's our relationship with God, whether it's, things that we have going on at school. It pulls us away from those things. And what it pulls us towards is things that are lesser, things that we don't need, things that really don't matter in our lives the way it is. And it bounds us to a schedule. We're locked in. We can't move unless we look at our schedule and do things. So when we look at that verse, I want to challenge you to fight against that. Fight against that part. When I tell you to fight against it, fight against that pull of culture. Culture tells us we should be busy. Culture tells us we should have all these things going on in our lives, that we should be a part of this and that. For those of you that are getting ready to go to college, your teachers and your colleges tell you, you can't get in unless you're a part of this club. If you played sports, if you did that, you got to have a job. You should have been doing this and there. Like, just to get into college these days, you have to have done all these extracurricular activities. It's almost past your grades now. It's really like who you are as a well-rounded American. Okay, that's the way it looks at it. It doesn't look at everything else. So for those of you that are looking at that, or y'all getting ready to move to that, that's what culture is telling you, that you have to be busy. You can't be successful unless you're busy. Culture tells us what we should say yes to. They tell us what we should say no to. They tell us how you need to plan your life every single day. So they're going to go ahead and throw up the second part of this verse. We're going to be looking at verses 16 and 17 now, and here's what it says. Making the most of every opportunity because the days are evil. Be very careful because the days are evil. Therefore, do not be foolish. Be very careful. Don't be foolish, but understand what the Lord's will is. So this part of the verse that we're looking at, what this is telling us is, again, that our days are evil. Our days can pull us when they're so cluttered with schedules from sun up to sundown that it's going to pull you away again from what matters. It's going to keep you from doing these things because you're just so busy with your life. And it looks again back at culture, things like school activities, things like outside activities. Some of you have to do things outside of school. Like if you do travel ball or you do band or chorus or you're part of a club or maybe you lead a small group or maybe you tutor somewhere or maybe you help with family or maybe you babysit friends next door. Those are things that pull you from it and that life in general. Though all these things that encompass what each of you see every single day, it kind of pulls you away. And what that means, that verse where it talks about the days are evil, it can pull you away from the things you say matter, what matters in your life. Because what that does is it pulls you to a marginless and a meaningless life when we let that just take over our life. Most of you guys have heard me say, and I'm not ashamed to admit it, I'm a huge gamer. I'm a huge video game. I love video games. I can admit I always thought I'd be fine to play once Addison got here. I don't think I've even turned my Xbox on since like a week before she came here. But I love playing video games. You guys have heard Daniel joke about this game called Destiny that I'm addicted to. I am unfortunately not proud to say that I checked it the other day. I've put in over 400 hours into that game. In a year and a half that it's been out, that's how many hours. I'm not even going to tell you what that equals to in days. You can figure that out yourself. But I put all this time into it, and it's this huge, elaborate game. You have to sign on every single day and do this and do that to earn this and earn that. So I'm a full-fledged nerd. I'm a dork when it comes to video games. I even have a group me of about 14 other grown men. I was one of the only like 2 in the group that didn't have kids until this past week. And we chat all day long about games and when we're getting on and when we're going to play together and what we're going to do, and we strategize. It's a full-on addiction to this game. And so, but I have a guy in the group that I know that he is actually way more addicted to this game than I am, like every single day. Okay, he gets up in the morning, he plays before his kids get up. He actually plays before he goes to work while his kids are getting ready. He plays when they get home and they go to bed. Like, he plays all the time. And so we were talking about it with another friend of mine, like, guys, he's always on, like, I'm addicted, but it's like an unhealthy addiction. Like, he plays all the time. And he always said he plays because, well, I got to collect this and I got to get that and I got to go here and I want to make sure that I have the time, because if I don't do this today, then I'm not going to be able to collect this object, or yada, 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 yada. And so we were telling him, and it kind of dawned on me when I thought about it, like, okay, great. It's a lot of fun. I worked really hard to collect these things, but when it's all said and done, when the game's over, when I'm bored about it, I can't take any of it with me. I can't do anything in the game. I can't pull it out. I can't use it in real life. It's done. But with that same reference, how many of you have something in your own life right now that you just have a straight addiction to, that you love doing, that you feel like it's fine, it's a part? Because I don't neglect anything. I don't do anything else that I shouldn't. I make sure that all my stuff's done. I make sure I go to work, that I get sleep. I do everything I do, but I've always enjoyed playing it, but I can't take anything with me. I can't use it. So what in your life do you have that you say, okay, there's no benefit from it? It's just something to do to pass the time, but when it's all said and done, I can't collect it. I can't keep it. I can't use it. So there's nothing that keeps me to that. So when it comes to those things that take from us, how many of you, when you get ready to actually do something or to schedule something, or maybe a friend of yours says, hey, do you want to hang out next Friday? Do you want to do something? How many of you, your very first response is, I got to check my schedule. Let me pull my phone out. Let me see. Let me see what I have. Let me see what I got to do. Let me look first. That's the first thing that we do, because we're bound to our schedule. We have to follow it. We have to check it. We can't double book ourselves. We can't keep ourselves from something else that we have going on. So what I want to do, and I want to challenge you guys, next week, we're like Daniel told you, we're done with the series tonight. Next week, we're going to do just a standalone message, and I want y'all to use this because it's going to carry over into next week. Next week, what we're going to do is talk more in depth about spending time with God and how we define that and how we use that and how we can actually make time in our schedule for it. So we're going to look at more of that. So this week, what I want to challenge you is a phrase. If anybody asks you to do something, if anybody asks you to be a part of something, if anybody asks you to go somewhere or do dinner or do this or do that, I want you to put this through your mind first. And I want all of you, write this down, put it in your phone, write it on your hand. I got 3 words that I want you to say to yourself if somebody invites you to do anything this week. And what it is it wise? Is it wise? What that means is it wise to do blank? Put whatever's in there, whatever somebody asks you to do. Is it wise to do this? Is it wise to do that? So when somebody asks you a question about doing something or finding somewhere to go, and you know, hey, I got to look at my schedule, use this phrase. The reason that I want you to use this phrase, is it wise, is because when you do this, think to yourself, is it wise that I put this in my schedule? If I put this into my schedule, is this going to take away from other things in my life? Is my plate going to be so full that things are just running off the side, that I'm losing touch with the things that matter in life, the places I'm supposed to go, the things that I'm supposed to do? Is it wise to do that? Will there be other areas in my life that suffer because I choose to do it? It doesn't matter what it is, but if somebody asks you to do something in your schedule, to be a part of something, just take a moment and say to yourself, is it wise? Is it wise that I do this? Is it going to be beneficial to myself? Now, when I say this, it doesn't always have to be negative. I don't want y'all to think every time I come up with a phrase that it's something negative, okay? It could be positive. If somebody says something to you and you have the time to do it, maybe somebody says to you this week, hey, I got a friend that really needs some help with something. Do you think you can help me with this? Can we do this? Maybe that's wise because you're able to reach out. You're able to kind of serve and help someone else. Maybe it's something that's going to be life-changing or life-giving, or maybe it honors God. So there are things in our life that when we see it, that it is wise because it is beneficial. But this week as you go, I just want you to kind of think about that and look at that, because our days are precious. The things that we do every single day, it really does count. I want you guys real quick, turn to James chapter 4. We're going to be looking down in verse 14. And what this verse talks about is our days, how important. It talks about what our days actually do and how short our days really are. So James chapter 4, verse 14, here's what it says. You do not even know what will happen tomorrow. You do not even know what will happen tomorrow. What is your life? You are a mist that appears for a little while and then vanishes. Instead, you ought to say, if it is the Lord's will, and I want you to underline this part just like I did on here, or I didn't do, I thought I did. I want you to underline this part of the verse. It says, we will live and do this or that. If it is the Lord's will, if it is what God's want, we will live and do this or that. What this verse is saying is that every single day is a gift from God. Every day that we have is a gift from God. So when we see this, is it wise to invest our time in Him, in God? Is that a wise thing to do? Yes, if you go back to Ephesians and go to that part that I told you guys to underline, be very careful. Be very careful in how you live, not as unwise, but as wise. What that means is make the most of every single day. Make the most of every opportunity that you have that comes along. Ask yourself, is it wise? So with that phrase, you hear that, you may be thinking, okay, I understand, Adam. You tell me to do this, to use this phrase, to think about these things, that I need to trim the fat here and add this to my life. So now what? What am I supposed to do? How do I schedule things in my life wisely? How do I use this phrase? Is it wise? So what I'm going to have, and you got to get your notes ready for this one. I got one more phrase I'm going to use. And guys, I promise you, this one phrase is going to change your mind. It's going to change your entire world. It's going to blow your mind. Anytime you have schedules come along, it's going to save you. It is the best phrase that you can use. So what it is, if you're ready now, when you use this phrase, you got to have courage and you got to have faith when you use it. If you don't, it's not going to work. So the phrase that I have for you, are you guys ready? Is no. That's all there is to it. No. No, 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 whatever you want to say, no. Yes, it is a phrase. It's not just a word, because you can draw out the word like no. No, 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 no. You can use it whatever way you want to use it. But this phrase, no, has power to what you have to do, what you have to schedule. See, here's the thing. When you learn to say no, and sometimes there's going to be things in your schedule that are good. There's going to be things that come along that in your mind, you're like, oh, that's a good thing to do. That'd be something that'd be great for me. But here's the thing. When you learn to say no to the good things in life, you leave room for the best things. Everybody knows good is not as great as best. You're not going to go somewhere. When you guys hear me say, hey guys, that gas station coffee is good. Most of you guys in this room will be like, no, Starbucks coffee is best. Okay? Gas station, see, neither. But you're not going to choose. Well, you're going to choose the good coffee over Starbucks? No, you're going to choose the best. So when you learn to say no to the good things, it allows you to leave room for the best things. Here's the other thing about learning to say no to the good things. See, good things become the enemy of best things. Good things become the enemy of best things. Romans chapter 12 is going to speak right to this, where it talks about saying no to the good things in our life so we can save room for the best thing. It's going to be chapter 12, verse 2. Here's what it says. Do not conform any longer to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. I want y'all to underline that part, the renewing of your mind. Then you will be able to test and approve what God's will is, his good, pleasing, and perfect will. I want you to underline that last part too. God's will, this is what it is. His will is good, it is pleasing, and it is perfect. When you abide by that to God's will. Now, that verse, that whole mindset of saying no, what that means is you have to change your mindset. You have to be able to say no to things in your life, no matter how good they sound. So what that does is it will allow you to transform your mind in how you prepare your schedule. How do you plan things in your life? This will allow you to transform your mind. It keeps you from being pulled like everybody else in life if you learn to say no to the good things. So what is normal? When we look at what is normal in life, normal is being busy. Being busy is what society says you should do. If you're not being busy, society looks at you as lazy. Like, oh, well, you're not doing anything. You're just at home. You don't have anything to do. You're obviously lazy. You obviously don't do anything in society. You don't contribute anything. That's what that means. Normal is busy. That's how they look. But here's the thing about being busy. That's culture looks at it. It views it as what we need to do. Busyness does not equal productivity. Busyness does not equal importance. Busyness does not equal being meaningful. Just because you're busy, it doesn't mean you're changing the world. It doesn't mean you're making a difference. It doesn't mean that you're actually doing anything in your life that's good at all. See, when we do that, people in our lives, or we're robbed of the meaning of life because we're not committed to things. It's because we're overcommitted. We spend way too much time investing all of our time and just letting our plates just fill over. And so when you have that courage to say no, to be faithful to say no to the good things in life, and you save room for the best, it's going to allow you to experience the better things in life. For me, before I started doing the student ministry, I was like hardcore addicted to flag football. Every single Sunday, that's what I did. At 12 o'clock, I showed up to Spain Park Fields, and I was like on a legit team, okay? I was the only white kid on the team too, because I never got to do anything but snap the ball. And that's all I did. And I played with everybody else, and all these guys were like legit athletes. I just snapped in the ball and played. But I did it, and when I went out, I was like decked out. I had like 7 or 8 jerseys, had my name on the back. They were like stitched, like they were huge. They were better than just the T-shirts that the guys go and pick up, like all the shirts, and they like hand draw their names on the back and things. Like I had that. I had armbands. I had like 3 or 4 sets of cleats that matched what uniform I was wearing that day. I had flags that had my name on it that matched. I had eye paint. I mean, I like all out. Okay. There's nothing wrong with it. That's what I did. It was good. It was exercise. That's what Emily and I used to do together. We used to go and hang out together and do that every Sunday afternoon. And it was good for me. But when I decided to do the student ministry, and this is what Emily and I wanted to do, we decided to say no to it. I'm done. I'm hanging up the cleats. I'm retiring. I'm done. I'm putting it in. I'm out. But when I did that, it was good. It was a great part of my life, but it left room for the best things. Being able to do this all the time is much better than just playing football every single Sunday. So what do you have in your life right now that maybe it's good, maybe it does good things for you, but if you said no to it, would it leave room for better things in your life if you decided to do that? So here's what I have for you. There's 2 things that we need to look at. We're almost finished. 2 things that we need to look at that are an important part to our relationship with God. When we don't allow these things in our life, it squeezes out the margin. It squeezes things away from us. It makes us be rushed and overwhelmed when we let these things go from our life. Here's what they are. The first thing I have that's important to our relationship with God is you must have an intimate and consistent time to realign with God. An intimate and consistent time to realign with God. What that means is we realign our hearts to God's word. When we take time to realign our hearts to God's word, it allows us to experience his truth, and it allows us to experience his presence. Matthew chapter 6, verse 33 says, "But seek first his kingdom and his righteousness, and all these things will be given to you as well. Therefore, do not worry about tomorrow." Underline that. Put lightning bolts, put stars, put birds, whatever you got to do, highlight it. Do not worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will worry about itself. Each day had enough trouble of its own. So what that means is to seek God first. Every single day or every single Tuesday when we're here, you hear that time of giving. You hear either Daniel or Derek teach you about what it means to give. And when we do that, we talk about that God tells us we should give the first 10% of what we bring in. And what we've told you before is when you do that, when you give that 10% first, God will bless the rest, right? So what if you give the first 10% of your day? Just like giving, you give the first 10% of your day, God will bless the rest of your day. You just spend 10 minutes with him, 15 minutes with him. Open the scripture. Ask God, what do you want me to learn? What do you want me to see? Find that. Spend 10 minutes, 10% of your day with God, and he will bless the rest of it because he's happy. He got to spend time with you. Every single night before Emily and I go to bed, this is when she does her devotion. She's not a morning person. She will tell you right now she hates mornings. She doesn't like getting up. She typically wants to have breakfast at like 12 o'clock if we're not doing anything. She doesn't want to go anywhere. So she's not a morning person when it comes to doing her devotions. So Emily saves her devotions for every single night before she goes to bed. Even now that Addison's here, she still finds time to do her devotion before she goes to bed. She'll lay down in bed, she'll pull out her phone, and she'll find the devotion that she's working on, and she'll go ahead and she'll start reading through that and doing that part of her day. She gives that last 10%, so that way, when the day's over, she knows she can fall asleep on it, she can meditate on it, she can wake up the next morning and be ready to go. And that's what she does every single day. I'll lay down, I'll just get ready to play my game, and she'll be like, can you go sit in the living room if you're going to do that? Or can you do this? I need some time with God. This is my time. This is when I get to spend with him. She does it every single night. Doesn't matter if it's a Friday night. Doesn't matter if it's a Saturday night. Whenever it is, she does it every single night before we go to bed. That's when she spends her time with God. So if you take that 10% of your day, whether it's in the morning or it's at night or sometime during the day, God will bless the rest of your day and God will bless the rest of your week. The second and last point that I have for you to being and having that relationship with God is intentional times of rest. Having intentional times of rest. Matthew chapter 11, last one, if y'all want to turn with me there. Matthew chapter 11, it's going to be verse 28. It says this. You guys heard Derek read it to you last week. Come to me, all who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke, and upon you learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and I will rest your soul. So when you read that, when you see that verse, our series verse, this is what when Derek and I did this series, what we based it around is that we are tired from our schedules. We have so much going on. We feel like there's not enough time in our day. When you do that, God tells us, all who are stressed, all who are tired, all who are overwhelmed, all who feel like the world is crashing down, all who feel like every time they turn around that they're blocked in somewhere, come to me. I'll rest your soul from it. I will take it from you. God tells us there's so many things that you can do if you just bring it to me. I will rest your soul when you bring it to me. You and I will spend time together, and I will make sure that even if you're weary, if you're burdened, I'll make sure you'll be refilled. Now, through this whole thing, you've probably thought to yourself, like, okay, where in my day, where can I fit some time in with God? Where can I trim the fat? Where can I maybe not do this activity but do this because it's actually pulling away from what I want to do or who I want to be, and it's just stressing me out? Where can I do this? So when you do these and you think about it, if right now in your mind you say, Adam, there's nowhere. I only have 24 hours in a day. I don't have any time. I can't fit it in. The reality is, if that's your mindset, then you really don't have time. Because you make time for the things that matter most to you. If you don't make time for it, if you don't find 24 hours in a day is forever. If you don't find time in your day, then you can't do it. What that means is that you're out of alignment with God. You're not stuck following him where you need to go. You need to fight to be different. You need to fight to be against culture. Be the weird one. Be the one that's different. Normal is being busy. Be the one that's not. Be the one that culture says is lazy. Be the one that says that culture doesn't say anything. And that's fine, because guess who's happier? The person that doesn't have a schedule that's just slam full of all day, every day, because normal does not work. If you don't have margin in your life, if you don't have places where you fit in what's beyond what is necessary, then you're missing out on the things that are most important. And the things that are most important in life is that you daily spend time realigning with God. You rest your souls, or you're just going to spend your days being normal. And when you spend your days being normal, all you're going to do is just be busy. I want you guys to go ahead and bow your heads for me tonight. With all heads bowed and all eyes closed, I really want you guys just reflect right now. Just think about your day. Think about every single thing that you have going on right now. Think about what you do when you wake up. Think about what you do when maybe you're running out the door grabbing a Pop-Tart before you head to the bus or hop in the car. Think about what you do when you get to school, you're there all day, when you're at lunch, when you're after school. Where do you have time in your day? What do you have in your schedule right now that you can pull out, that you can eliminate? Because it's really not doing anything for you. It's not building you up. It's not making you better. It's just something to fill your time. While you're thinking about that and you're thinking about where in my life, what can I use? Think about fitting God in. You heard me say, if right now in your mind, you don't have a place that you can fit any of these things in, you don't have a place that you can fit in God, then you don't. That's the reality of it. I'm going to be honest with you, you don't. And what that means is you don't feel like you have time for God. You don't have time to realign with Him. Maybe you're sitting here thinking about that and you think to yourself, I need to realign with God. I'm so veered off the path. I am so out of alignment with my relationship with God right now that I don't spend time. And the only time I spend with God is when I come here on a Tuesday. Or maybe I come on a Sunday. That's the only time that I even crack open my Bible. That's the only time that I even pick up my Bible. Maybe you're ready to change that, to have that relationship with God. Maybe you've never had that relationship. That's why you don't pick it up. If that's you today and you're just ready to have that relationship with God, you're ready to be aligned with Him, you're ready to chase Him down, to put Him into your schedule, to eliminate other things from your schedule today, and I challenge you to mark that on your card. Make that decision to follow God tonight. God, I love you. We love you. We thank you for each of these students that are here tonight, God. We know schedules that they have, they're ridiculous. They've got things from the moment they wake up to the moment they lay their head down every single night, God. And they probably do feel like I have no room, I have nothing. And God, what I pray for you is this week as they go, I pray that they accept that challenge. I pray that they think to themselves, is it wise? Is it something that I can fit in when they have something? God, I pray that you kind of show them where in their lives that they can fit some time with you. Where can they do things where they can just have a moment to be intimate with you on a consistent basis every single day. God, we love you. We thank you again for loving us and every single thing that you do in our lives. In your name we pray.